Here's why I think hybrid training is the future for fitness. I know what you're probably thinking. Oh, here comes just another self-proclaimed hybrid athlete who just did a Hyrox or an Ironman and was basically forced to publish on Instagram. And you're kind of correct, except I've never done any of those. I'm just a normal guy who actually thinks hybrid training is kind of the solution, I was gonna say, for almost every single problem for life, but at least for fitness. So hear me out, because this might change the way you view training forever. Before I go too deep into this topic, what does hybrid training actually mean? To put it simply, hybrid training is when you combine different types of training that aren't supposed to go together. For example, building muscle while trying to build endurance. In the past, there was this idea that these two things would cancel each other out, what we call the interference effect. Like, don't lift too much or you'll become slow, or don't run too much or you'll lose all your muscle. But here's the twist, that only makes sense if your only goal or your fitness worldview is simply based on one metric, either aesthetics or strength. And I get it, when you start lifting, especially when you're young, that is the goal. You just want to look good, have better arms, have visible abs, have a bigger chest, basically just looking good on the beach. That's what got most of us in the fitness industry in the first place. But think about this, what do actual athletes do? Let's think cyclists. They don't just cycle, they also lift weights. MMA fighters, they don't just practice MMA, they also do some strength and conditioning. Same with boxers, same with any kind of athlete. But are they cyclists, MMA fighters, or are they hybrid athletes, right? They're just simply athletes. They train for performance. They train to be capable in more than one area. So the whole label of hybrid athlete is just our way of describing something that athletes have been doing this for years. But since most of us aren't pro athletes, we need a word for this blend. Hence, hybrid athlete. But let's not get hung up on this name. Let's talk about why this training method actually matters, and why I think more and more people are leaning into it, and why I think it's going to be the future. When you're younger, your goals in the gym are extremely simple. They typically fall into two categories, either looking better or getting stronger. That's it really. You go to the gym, you chase the pump, you focus on progressive overload, all in the hopes to look a bit better. But then something shifts. Time passes. You start getting older. And when you start getting older, you hit some plateaus. You realize your physique is actually pretty solid after a couple of years of training. And that dopamine rush from looking good, it starts to wear off. Maybe you can now deadlift an extreme amount of weight, but you realize that your cardio is pretty terrible. But even more importantly than just your cardio being terrible, there's even one thing that changes more than just this performance. And that is your life. You start getting older. Your life changes. You get a demanding job, maybe a family. Suddenly there's less time, more stress, and just basically different priorities. And that mirror where you used to look at to see if you were looking good just doesn't seem as appealing as before. This is where a lot of people get stuck. You only train to look good, and when progress slows down, which it always does, you're left with two choices. You accept where you are and accept that in the long term you will start to decline, or the second option, you join the dark path. And by that I mean you start taking maybe some performance enhancing drugs. And if you decide this path, then you can just click off this video. This video isn't for you. But if you want to stay natural, you will need a different type of motivation. Something that isn't just about how you look, but about what you can do. And that's exactly where hybrid training comes in. When you start training for more than one thing, suddenly you don't feel like burning out. You can run a 5K and still hit a PR the next day. You can try to improve your bench press while still practicing maybe triathlon. You can do calisthenics. Basically, you can just think, what can I improve maybe this month or in the next 3 months or year or so? You stop obsessing about the way you look in the mirror, because now you're chasing different skills, more resilience, and to be honest, more mental growth. You're training like a human who wants to be capable of doing extremely difficult things and not just looking good. And ironically, you still end up looking good. And I would say that sometimes even better than before, because now your body represents what you're able to do, not just what you measure. Here's the truth, the people who stay fit in the long term aren't those who look the best at 22 years of age. They are the ones who adapt and who find new ways or new reasons to train as life progresses. Hybrid training works because it gives you options. You're not boxed into a single identity like bodybuilder, powerlifter, which in most cases, you're not even that good. I had to say it, sorry. You basically become just someone who trains, who tries things, who wants to be strong, mobile, and fast and durable and just enjoys life. Isn't that what fitness is supposed to be? And that's why I think hybrid training will outlast anything in the fitness industry. And why I think it's the future. Because it's not about a certain look. It's about building a body that can show up for anything. And in my eyes, I don't think this should even be called hybrid. I think we should just be called capable humans. But I guess nowadays more than ever, we need labels for everything. And maybe hybrid is the best label we have right now. So whatever you call it, you don't have to choose between just looking good or being capable of doing something. You can do both at the same time. And the people who are still training from 10, 20, 30 years from now, maybe even 40, are the ones who figured this out. They're not focused on just the way they look.